Hey everybody, Seth from SealRyt Corporation, manufacturers of the Pack-Right bearing and high performance mechanical packing here for the Pump Seal channel to go over how to install packing. So, very simple, or so it seems. There's a few tricks to the trade, and there's a few very major items, components to doing this that you want to make sure that you're following in order to have a properly installed pump so that it runs to the best of its ability given the process and the packing. Big thing is you don't want your installation of the packing to be that first point of failure. All right, so a few tricks. As far as tools go today, very simple. Obviously a wrench, some lubrication. This is a pusher here, and then these are my tamping tools. Again, just showing you the different sizes. The one I'm going to be using today here is this green one, working on a Gould's 3196 MT. So obviously you just base it off of the cross section of the packing you're going to be using. These also are manufactured in larger sizes. So from there, let's get on with it. All right, so on to the mechanical packing. Here's my packing set. As you can see, I have two different types of packing in here. I did cover it in an earlier video that sometimes you do need to use different types of packing based on the position of the pump, because whether you're going from process out or atmosphere in, each position is going to see different criteria. It may see different thermal qualities, different mechanical properties, may see different chemical concentrations based on how close it is to the flush or atmosphere to process. What that requires sometimes is mixing your packings inside of that stuffing box based on where it's going to be in the position, so that you have the optimal packing in that particular position for the process that you're going to be pumping. All right, so without further ado, that's the pump I'm going to be using right there, the old Gould's 3196 MT. Best thing to do, start off, is measure inside the pump. If you've never worked on this before, you've never worked on this particular piece of equipment, highly suggested that you get your box depth, your box bore, your shaft sleeve, and the position of the lantern ring. If it's something that you've worked on time and time again, should be noted somewhere what your packing arrangement is going to be. What I mean by that is how many rings of packing from process to the flush ring, and then from the flush ring out to atmosphere. And most of the time, if you look inside a manual, it'll have a code. It'll be like 3L3, 2L3, 4L2. What that means is from process out to atmosphere. So 2L3 means it's 2 rings of packing, L for lantern ring, and then 3 rings of packing out to atmosphere, just so that there's no confusion. So I've worked on this pump before. No need for me to measure it. I already know what I'm going to be using for my packing. So to start off, I am going to remove my packing from, if I can get it, from the packaging. Good job packaging here. It is okay for most applications. Again, check with your planner, check with operations to use lubrication in order to get that packing ring in there. Sometimes they can be a little bit oversized, and then when you start manipulating them, it releases the fibers and expands them, and can make it difficult to install the packing into the pump. All right, WD-40 works. I'm a Croyle man myself. If either Croyle or WD-40 wants to pay me for what I just said, I'd be happy to accept their money. So all I'm going to do is give the shaft sleeve a quick shot. I'm going to give the OD of my packing ring a quick shot. And here, now I have my first packing ring set. I'm going to pull it in, and I'm going to do what's called a helix here. Now, as you're installing the packing, as you can see, I have one of the cuts that is sloping away from the stuffing box and one towards the stuffing box. Always want to do the one that's away first and seat that in. You never want to reverse it and seat the one pointing towards the stuffing box in first. Why? Because when you close it inside the stuffing box, now all of a sudden you have a little step there. So from here, I'm going to start my packing ring. here, and I'm going to follow it around. Now, a little trick to the trade here, if you can see. If I'm having a hard time getting my packing in, I'm actually just going to take this free end and bend it back a little bit. That'll drop that top edge right in. Boom. Once I have it flush, now here's where the controversy begins. A lot of people will take the gland follower and then set that next packing ring in. They'll push it as far as the gland follower can go, and then they'll take the next packing ring, put it behind it, and keep going on all the way through until all of the packing is in. I highly suggest not doing that. You have no guarantee that that first packing ring or subsequent packing rings are mated to each other or at the bottom of the box, which is why I have all these special tools here. These pumps are designed to have positive surface contact with the bore, somewhat with the shaft, but certainly with each other, with each subsequent packing ring. It is meant to be compressed together. You're going to get the optimal performance out of your pump and your packing when you make sure that every single ring is firmly seated. So I'm not saying that using the gland follower is wrong. I'm saying that's only part of what you should be doing if that's how you choose to install the packing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly show you how to go about using the packing follower very simply here. So I'm going to bumble this and put my gland follower in like such. Okay, let's see if I'm coordinated enough here. Almost, and we're there. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to actually use the packing follower, and I'm going to push this all the way in until the nose is fully seated. And again, I'm going to bumble this. There we go. That first ring is always a doozy. Got it. Okay, I went as far as I could with that gland follower. Again, some people will stop there, put the next ring in, and then use that gland follower again to seat that packing ring. And again, use the subsequent rings to compress it all the way to the bottom. I'm telling you, don't do that. So do that, but then do the next step. You can either take a pusher such as this here. You can wrap it around the shaft like such here. These can be a little temperamental. Then from there, I can push that ring a little bit further in. I can use the gland follower then behind that as well to push that a little further in. Problem with that, that's not the actual depth of the stuffing box. Okay, so we still don't know if we're all the way in. Plus, once you get this thing past the bore here, it's kind of a pain in the knobs to pull out. You'll have to use your extractor and try to take it out, but it's still a very useful tool. Highly suggest that whoever you are, get some of these. They do help, and it makes things a lot more expedient. That's where this fine dandy comes in. So this is my tamping tool. All right, so what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to make sure that I go in that cut end. I know where that position is of my cut is. I'm going to go on that cut end that was away from the pump. I go on that first, and I push this all the way down. And I bring it all the way around, slowly bringing that packing ring down to the bottom of the box until I am fully seated inside of there. From there, I will now repeat this process with all of my other packing rings. All right, pull them out. Boom. Give it a quick shot. Boom. Boom. Now, what I want to do with my next ring now is stagger those joints. You don't ever want to put the joints in the same place. What I mean by that is I had my split at the 12 o'clock position on the pump. I'm going to want to rotate that next joint. You don't ever want to create a leak path, which is what you're ultimately doing. All right, you're creating a leak path, making it easier for processor flush water to get out here to atmosphere. So simply by rotating that, I'm sealing that top joint. And then on the next ring, I may go to the 6 o'clock position. I'm sealing this joint, so on and so forth. There's a lot of controversy as to what is the appropriate position. Is it 90 degrees? Is it 120? Is it 180? You know what? Just make sure you're staggering the joints at minimum 90 degrees. All right, just make it harder for anything to leak out. So from here, I'm going to give her the little helix. From there, as you can see, now I went 90 degrees. I bring the cut end that is pointing away from the pump in first, like such. And boom, boom, boom. From there, like I said, I can either grab my gland, push it in, use my pusher from there, and then my tamping tool, or you can just go straight for the tamping tool. Bypass everything else. Big thing, start on your cut end first. Ooh, it's almost my knuckles, which is very, very common. All right, boom, and she's in. All right, so from there, I'm going to fill the stuffing box. All right, all the way out, going by what is recommended, the 2L3, 3L3, whatever it is. I'm going to put that packing in there. Okay, so standard industry practice with your gland follower, they say, is you want to pilot 1/8 of an inch of that nose into the stuffing box. All right, that's the common measure. Eyeball it. You don't have to sit there with micrometers or anything to make sure you have exactly 1/8 of an inch in. It's just you don't want, the big thing is you don't want that packing gland outside of the stuffing box. So if your packing goes beyond the point of the stuffing box, stop right there. Pull that last ring out, put your gland in. What can happen sometimes is, especially when it's running and you go to tighten it, the gland follower may split. It may move up and down, and then it'll never actually get piloted into that stuffing box. It's not doing anything on the packing. It's not tightening it. It's not making sure that all those surfaces are mated anymore. This thing becomes something to just make sure that the packing doesn't blow out of there. But other than that, it serves no purpose at that point. So if you were to err in one direction, make sure that the packing gland is inside that stuffing box before you start. So startup procedures, it varies on the process. It varies on the type of packing. All I can say is don't over tighten it. Do not over tighten it. I'm sure some of the people watching this video have done this before, where they've put too much tension on that gland follower. And what happens? You go to startup, it smokes, it burns. Once you've burned packing, it's pretty much done. Okay, it's just there to fill the void. It's not actually doing anything performance-wise to actually keep process out and that seal water flush in your packing. It's cooked. It's done. So what we typically do, and again, it varies on process. It varies on the pump. But typically is we'll get our packing in. We'll put the gland follower on. We'll get it finger tight. We'll turn the gland nuts about 2 flats. Let it rest for a little bit. Back it off. Let it relax. Then bring it back hand tight. And then once the pump starts up, then we go in and we do our final adjustments. So everybody has their own way of doing it. I'm just saying, don't put a lot of beef to it, all right? Don't torque it down. If anything, if you're going to err in one direction on that, is leave it a little bit more loose. You can take up on it as you go. All right, so that's how you install packing. Again, there are many different ways to do it. Biggest takeaways from this, make sure that you seat every single ring. Make sure that every joint is not stacked up on each other. And then make sure your gland is piloted inside of the stuffing box, and don't over tighten that packing. If you want any more information on this, you want to talk to us, if you disagree, fine, get in touch with us. We'll be happy to answer any questions. Again, there are many different ways to do this. As long as you kind of hold on to those 4 major components, you're going to be successful. Thanks for your time.